This is the Nations Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. It didn't take much time for Donald Trump to start implementing all of the New World Order policies and infrastructure since being sworn into office on Monday, January 20th. And it only took 3 full days for Donald Trump not only to bring in AI infrastructure, but also to talk about curing cancer and to eventually, towards the end of the first week back in power, show up at the World Economic Forum. Of course, he's showing up virtually because he couldn't get there based on his schedule and signing all of these executive orders. So he's promised he'll be there in 2026, if of course we're here. And I'm sure by then the New World Order will be established. And of course, it's not a coincidence either that Donald Trump was standing in front of the E Pluribus Unum that so proudly we see all across America and all across our government, which of course means out of many one. And when I say so proudly, I'm being sarcastic because that motto right there is the motto of the New World Order. One, it is a one world government, a one world everything. And of course, as I talked about earlier in the week, he was sworn in the apotheosis underneath that giant mural up on the rooftop of George Washington, surrounded by the pagan gods, and of course holding up the same exact sign that says out of one, many. As you see, the great American experiment to bring in the New World Order working, and it's working very easily. Now, why is it working so easily? Because I'm going to show you what they're really talking about in Davos versus what everybody's hearing, right? Because all it takes for people is to hear what they want to hear and then to automatically shut their brain off. So all of the conservative alt-right media is talking about how Donald Trump talked about how men aren't going to play women's sports. These are all the things that I've discussed, right? Basic level thinking, things that shouldn't even be discussed because all they need to hear is that to stand up on their social media accounts, to stand up and defend MAGA, because he's speaking about things that are common sense issues, and that's all that they hear. They don't hear things like when Klaus Schwab introduces him and congratulates him on showing up at the World Economic Forum 4 days after his new mandate, which is an interesting term to use when talking about the President of the United States of America, who supposedly is elected. Or was it a mandate? Now, the representative in democracies, a mandate is perceived as somebody who has the legitimacy to rule through popular support. But that's only if you gave your consent to be governed. And the majority of these people who you would think and who claim to be opposed to the New World Order don't even realize that Trump is bringing in the New World Order right now with the things that he's beginning to mandate in the United States of America, the infrastructure that he's bringing in. But let me start by showing you the talking points that the alt-right media hears. These are all basic level thinking things, right? He's talking about free speech. He's talking about how he has removed any type of misinformation stuff from the internet. Anybody who's trying to censor free speech, he's going after them hard, right? And that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, I know somebody who sounds a lot like me, had 2 channels deleted this week. I know a lot of people out there who are reposting my content or their own content and having it removed from platforms like Twitter, if of course they're speaking against the left-right paradigm. And Donald Trump, of course, when he was president in 2016, that is when the first influx of censorship began, right after that event at that pizza parlor in Washington, D.C. All of the censorship started under Donald Trump's watch, just like Operation Warp Speed, but everybody conveniently can't think as far as they can spit, so they just think that all this stuff has to do with Joe Biden, Democrats, and a liberal world order, when in fact they're bringing in a new world order under the guise of freedom and nationalism, because all they need to do is bring in this infrastructure. So when I talk about hearing what you want to hear and basic level thinking, this is what I mean. Here is Donald Trump talking about things like Bank of America, freezing people's bank accounts, talking about 2 genders, men and women. Men only allowed to play men's sports, women only allowed to play women's sports, and of course, your right to free speech. These are all things that the conservatives are applauding and screaming, saying things like Donald Trump has defeated the globalists, because this is all that their brains can actually process. Listen to this.
Mr. President, Hello. What great honor. What great honor and pleasure to welcome you back to the Davos community. Just 4 days into your new mandate, we highly appreciate your presence with us today. In addition, I'm pleased to report that America is also a free nation once again. On day one, I signed an executive order to stop all government censorship. No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas and, frankly, progress. We have saved free speech in America, and we've saved it strongly. With another historic executive order this week, I also ended the weaponization of law enforcement against the American people and, frankly, against politicians, and restored the fair, equal, and impartial rule of law. My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense, and these are policies that were absolute nonsense throughout the government and the private sector. With the recent yet somewhat unexpected great Supreme Court decision just made, America will once again become a merit-based country. You have to hear that word, merit-based country. And I've made it official, an official policy of the United States, that there are only two genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur very rarely. And by the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
So again, that is basic level thinking. They can't think past those types of common sense issues. So, of course, the alt-right media like Benny Johnson and Alex Jones, they're going crazy, right? President Trump shames Bank of America CEO to his face for debanking conservatives. And anybody out there know that conservatives were not able to bank at Bank of America? Does anyone know anybody who went to Bank of America and they said, what do you vote for? Who do you vote for? Oh, you can't bank here. Of course not, right? But these are the things they want you to think. And of course, Alex Jones is going crazy, talking about war against DEI programs. Trump ends all DEI government policy, says we will be a merit-based country, and men participating in women's sports. There are only two genders, male and female. Alex Jones is breaking it all down here at the World Economic Forum. He's unleashing the power of the American economy. He is going after the deep state and going after these globalists, and their plan for a tyrannical world government is now dead. This is what the alt-right media is pumping out there, because all they need to hear is Donald Trump talk about these crazy Democrat ideologies, which they put out there deliberately so that you get sucked into supporting people who are talking about common sense. Instead, of course, of civilians fighting back against this by not allowing these people to govern us who are talking about this. They knew it would work perfectly. Trump has gained more support than ever because of all the nonsense that they've tried to normalize, knowing that the people would reject it and knowing that the people would run to Donald Trump. So all the conservatives consider what you just heard, him going after the globalists, going after the deep state, because he's saying that men are men and women are women. But if you actually pay attention to what they talk about at the World Economic Forum, it's not too much about men playing women's sports. They do talk about equity and inclusion, of course, because that's part of the universal basic income that is to come. But the overall theme that nobody reads between the lines about, that I'll continue to talk about, is the Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Schwab. They go and they meet and they discuss how they can implement a fourth industrial revolution, which is the AI age, the internet age. That's what it is. It sets policies and frameworks and practices designed to ensure artificial intelligence governance. That's what the World Economic Forum is. The World Economic Forum is trying to bring about AI governance and an AI governance alliance. So in order to do that, what needs to be done? What needs to be done? I know many people out there have a tough time understanding what it even means because they don't know what AI is yet. They haven't become aware of connecting through AI, Doge, and less human beings in Congress, that this thing's going to be run via artificial intelligence, that our government is they're going to censor, they're going to silence, they're going to freeze bank accounts, they're going to put mandates on your day-to-day life. But the infrastructure needs to be in place. So while everybody's paying attention to Donald Trump, even though he's calling all the people in the room his friends, they ignore that and they just smile and cheer because they're just thrilled that he's once again saying same things like a man is born a man and a woman's born a woman. This is what they've gotten people to think about and consume themselves with. Basic level thinking. Instead of saying, okay, what are they doing at the World Economic Forum, right? What is this tyranny and this globalist government? How would this actually work? Well, it only worked through artificial intelligence, which is why you don't hear Alex Jones or any of the alt-right media bring attention to it. But guess who did bring attention to it? That's right. Donald Trump brought attention to it in Davos, letting you know while telling you and tickling your ears with all these ridiculous things about gender, letting you know that not only is he bringing about AI governance, but he's going to push forward emergency declarations for rapid approval, which means rapid approval as in nobody will be able to oppose it. And by the time it's approved and you actually realize what it is, it'll be too late. A national emergency to bring about AI infrastructure, which is exactly what they're there meeting about. But if your brain can't process what they're actually talking about, and you can't get past things like a man's a man, and you need the president to confirm that, or to say something on a national or global stage to make you pump your fist in the air, you don't even realize that this guy is literally talking about everything that Klaus Schwab says. He's kissing their rear ends just like they're kissing his by being there. He's kissing their rear ends. He's a participant all the time at the World Economic Forum. Goes on to say that those are all his friends. And he's talking about bringing in exactly what the globalists want, faster than any other country will.
It'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto. Already Americans' you can see this, I think, maybe even in your wonderful, wonderful room that you're all gathered together. So many of my friends, just 2 days ago, Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI announced a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure. Other companies likewise have announced billions and billions and billions, adding up to trillions of investment in America, in the United States. And what I'd like to see is rapid approvals. We're going to give very rapid approvals in the United States, like with the AI plants, talking to many people want to build them. That's going to be a very big thing. We're going to build electric generating facilities. They are going to build. I'm going to get them the approval. Under emergency declaration, I can get the approvals done myself without having to go through years of waiting. And the big problem is we need double the energy we currently have in the United States. Can you imagine? For AI to really be as big as we want to have it, because it's it'll be very competitive with China and others. So I'm going to give emergency declarations so that they can start building them almost immediately. And I think it was largely my idea because nobody thought this was possible. It wasn't that they were not smart, because they're the smartest, but I told them that what I want you to do is build your electric generating plant right next to your plant as a separate building connected. And they said, wow, you're kidding. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. You don't have to hook into the grid, which is old and, could be taken out. If it's taken out, they wouldn't have any way to get any electricity. So we are going to allow them to go on a very rapid basis to build their plant, build the electric generating plant. They can fuel it with anything they want.
So that right there is the nucleus of what they're there meeting about. Most people don't know that. They think that when they hear globalists and they hear these meetings like the Bilderberg, that these people are all in a room. And Bill Gates, they're in a room and they're talking about men having babies and can men play women's sports. They think that that's what they actually care about. They feed you that so that that consumes you, so that you can't even process what they're talking about. So when Trump talks for 45 minutes, all the clips I played for you in the beginning, those are all the things that the conservatives care about. Men, women, making America strong, beating China, beating Russia, becoming that global superpower. Oh yeah, and we're nationalists too, right? Yeah, nationalists for now in this illusion, because Trump makes it very clear that he is there to carry out the Club of Rome's plans. Because not only did he talk about the key ingredient in a new world order, AI infrastructure, and how he wants to expedite it, but he also talked about the adoptive global world system, which includes America seizing Canada and Greenland. But of course, they won't tell you that he's going to seize it. He's talking about making life difficult for Canada because Canada has sabotaged itself with Justin Trudeau, because that's the name of the game here. Democrats sabotage. The conservatives are going to come in and they're going to bring about all these New World Order ideologies without you realizing it, because you're going to be too busy thinking about ridiculous stuff like men playing women's sports. So here's Trump talking about Canada becoming one with America and even potentially Mexico in the future.
One thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years. And it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody. So, just as an example, with Mexico, we're dealing with Mexico, I think, very well.
Right, and that right there, just bringing attention to it. This is what the Club of Rome's blueprint is. It is the regionalized adoptive model for the global world system. A North American Union where America, Canada, and Greenland are all together as one. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't change or haven't changed this blueprint, which goes back, I think it's to 1974. It's the 1970s off the top of my head, when this was released, the Club of Rome's blueprint here for a new world order, that Mexico won't be part of the North American Union back then. But it could very easily, I could see it as part of it now. However, part of this stuff with the border and keeping us all, it's to keep us trapped in here, not to prevent them from coming over. It's to create a border for them to have a digital ID in place. They're going to need the border to get you on board with the digital ID, to say, look, we need a digital ID to keep these people out. We got to keep them out. We're going to build a wall and we're going to have a digital ID, and you're going to cheer and applaud it. That's why it makes obviously more sense to keep Mexico out and have them merge down with the South American Union. But he's openly talking about two of the biggest talking points for anyone out there that has read manuscripts, who has studied the New World Order, the infrastructure, the blueprints, all of the things that are needed to bring it about. It's not this ridiculous crap that they're discussing on television every day to drive you crazy. It's these things. They don't want you to be able to think this far, to figure out what the blueprint is. So they give you all these talking points that they expect you to retweet and talk about. Hey, did you hear Trump go against the globalists? Where did he go against the globalists? By saying that men are men and women are women? That's going against the globalists. The globalist plan is everything you see Trump implementing. Artificial intelligence infrastructure is the plan. You hear all the stuff that these conservatives yell about smart cities. They're like, they're burning Lahaina for smart cities. Yes, they are. So they're right in a sense, right? There's something going on here with the deep state, right? Yeah, you're right. But do you know that smart cities can only run through AI governance? Do you know that this is smart city governance is AI infrastructure? So they need to burn these places and do all this stuff to bring about AI infrastructure, destroying the current infrastructure to bring in the new infrastructure. And Donald Trump is so on board with the exact same thing that the globalists talk about year in and year out there, which is the fourth industrial revolution, which is AI governance, that he is going to expedite it. He is going to make an emergency declaration. But nobody out there wants to hear it or believe it. So I ask the people out there who don't like my channel, who don't have to, or like me, the people out there who are MAGA, who are conservative, who think they know about the deep state and the new world order. What do you think their blueprint is? What do you think it is? Do you know about the North American Union? Do you know that this is something that's been going on since the 1970s? They've been trying to. No, you don't probably, right? Why? Because you're getting your information from Alex Jones. You're getting your information from COINTELPRO agents who talk about nonsensical issues, basic common things that shouldn't even be discussed. When I say that, what I mean is if you went, let's just use a hypothetical. You were living in the wild, wild west, right? Let's say that was real. What we've seen is the wild, wild west. And you walked into a town in the wild, wild west. You had your cowboy hat on, you had a gun, okay? And you were walking around there and there's a saloon. And suddenly a man comes into town dressed as a woman. And he says, I am a woman. And everyone's like, well, you got a beard, so you're not a woman. We could see a penis, you're likely not a female. They'd say, look, we're going to put you behind bars here, sober you up and see if you come to your senses, right? Nobody would listen to it. It wouldn't be a debate. Let's sit down at town hall in the Wild West. They wouldn't get the whole town in there and say, is this a man or a woman? He wouldn't sit there and say, well, I feel like a woman today. And everyone would go, interesting. Let's go back and forth and we're going to have a vote on this. It wouldn't be a vote. There wouldn't be a conversation because it's non-issue. It is not even a topic of conversation. It is common sense. They're keeping you in a bubble of talking about all of these things because they've convinced people through mind control that they are born in the opposite body. They've convinced people through mind control that all of these ideologies that are insane are normal. They've used MK Ultra for decades now on the American populace, okay? So the only person to blame for why people are calling for or asking for gender changes and all that stuff is your government, who is performing mind control on you on a day in, day out basis to convince you of these things. Not your neighbor who is identifying this way. They don't know any better because they're under hypnosis, just like the MAGA people are under hypnosis to only care about these stupid issues, while right in front of you, the same person they think is going to save them is implementing it, right? If Biden was there talking about bringing in AI governance, you probably start paying attention because you probably start going, well, what is that, right? And you probably find my channel and hear me screaming about it, and you'd say, oh man, we got to stop him. That's a globalist agenda. But because Trump's saying it, they're ignoring it. Because Trump's talking about a certain something they want to stick in your body to get nanotech in you and curing cancer. Because he's talking about it, he gets a pass. Just like Operation Warp Speed, just like the person who called himself the father of the potion, or just like the person who actually implemented all this online censorship, which goes back to 2016. People have a very, they have short-term memory because of the information overload and the constant use of technology. They can't remember much. 2016, at the end of that year, going into 2017, when Donald Trump was put in power, is when the internet was wiped clean. What was once the truther movement was wiped off. People with millions of subs, hundreds of that gone in a blink, never to be heard from again. But people wanted that type of information. So what did the government do? Well, they gave you little bits of truth. They brought Alex Jones as your COINTELPRO, who's been around forever, but they continued to give him a platform, making it seem like he was oppressed, right? They give you Tucker Carlson, they give you Ben Shapiro, and they talk about these issues that they deliberately want you to pay attention to, things that shouldn't be issues like gender, so that you never wake up to what the actual blueprint is for a new world order. All these people seem to need is to hear what they want to hear from Donald Trump, saying the things that they're thinking about men playing women's roles. These are things that everyone's thinking, right? So to hear him say it to all these people, they love it, they cheer it on. But they don't have the slightest clue about what the deep state is, what globalists really want. And he's giving it to the globalists. He's giving it to you while distracting you right in front of your face, talking about rapidly bringing this in. And nobody out there talks about it. You don't hear any of them talking about Canada and what this means is the 51st state and the North American Union. Jones, that's what gatekeepers do, right? They give you some truth. They pretend to be oppressed without being oppressed, right? I thought Jones was bankrupt. I thought he had to sell his platform. I thought Jones, it's over. He's going billions of dollars to the victims that he could have defended himself against and didn't in court deliberately to set a new precedent on who could be sued and for what, right? Oh, how convenient that he's still out there, just saying he's oppressed and saying he only makes money through selling his pills and everything else, right? Right. So people go there, they think he's oppressed to get truth. And he doesn't mention the North American Union. He doesn't mention the Club of Rome. He doesn't mention secret societies, Freemasons. Of course he doesn't, because he's gatekeeping. They give you little bits of truth. They give you things that would make you go, yeah, I'm on your side because you're speaking common sense, right? That's what the alt-right media is here to do. None of them will talk about AI governance and why Trump is literally Operation Warp Speed 2.0 here to bring this in. That's what he's doing. bringing it in as fast as possible. Why? Because the second common people wake up to what it is, it'll be too late. Once it's established, once people understand digital ID, carbon footprint, and all these things and how they connect to an AI infrastructure, they would push back. Conservatives would push back. They'd say, I don't want that. Wait a minute. I don't want a surveillance state. I don't want more government. I want less. So they're telling you that it's less government. Oh, I'm going to give you this back, less taxes, less government. We're going to fire people with Doge, right? At the same time, they're actually bringing in permanent government. That's what AI infrastructure is. Everything you write, everything you say, everything you think, they will know. And they will come for you. They will arrest you for thinking against Donald Trump while he's the president, or somebody like Kamala Harris if they're put in as president. That's what the future holds with AI governance. So pay attention to what they're really saying, because what they want you to think about is what the alt-right media says, right? DEI programs, merit-based country. Well, yeah, things always should be based on merit. But you don't think the Democrats did that by design so they could bring this in while giving you back things that you think are your freedoms, which are God-given rights, that you don't need the government to tell you you have a right to, like free speech? It's utter insanity. It's insanity that nobody sees what Donald Trump is discussing. He goes live on Davos. He talks about how they're all his friends. He can't wait to see them next year. They all ignore that because he talked about men being men, right? Then he goes on to talk about rapidly getting AI governance in place, which is what they discuss every single second of every meeting there. It's about AI governance in the fourth industrial revolution, while telling you at the same time, hey, we should really just bring Canada in as the 51st state, because they don't expect you to know about the Club of Rome or any of these things. They don't expect you to, because they expect you to just pay attention to issues that aren't real issues while they bring about a new world order. I hope this video was helpful. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.